So with that done, I'm going to start burning in the breast feathers in the areas I won't be able to reach. With my medium skew. I'm just using the tip and doing a little bit of a twist as I get to the end of the feather. And again, this is the first pass. And you notice I didn't put a hard line on the outer edge of each one of these feathers. I did that on purpose. We don't want fish scales, and that's what it would look like if I were to do that. So instead I let the wood burning itself, the texture, indicate where a feather stops and starts rather than the hard edge. This is a really tough area to get into right here that I'm working on. And definitely like standing on my head. And I got it. You'll be so pleased to achieve this when it happens, because it is uncomfortable. Once I finish these feathers directly under the bill, I'll be able to switch back over to my medium skew. Of course, as the feathers get larger, it gets a little bit easier. Now I am going to come back and refine all of this on my subsequent passes. The only way I can get in here is to use the very tip. it's always, for me, I like getting these hard areas out of the way, finish them up, so that when I get back to the medium skew, it seems like it's a dream. The spear does not handle the same way that the medium skew does. And it's hard for me to be as accurate as I am with the skew. Having the right light to see the texture that was added when I carved the individual feathers of the breast is also important. And with each one of these feathers, things are getting a little bit easier. Keep track of which feather's on top of the other. If you don't, you might find yourself burning them incorrectly and not the way you planned it. And when you put a little bit of a curve in your barbs, it helps to add contour to that feather. When I design my carvings, I have to think about, especially because I carve one-piece birds out of a single piece of wood. You choose your subject and its pose according to what, if you can actually achieve it. So, you know, when I decide I'm going to do a one-piece bird, I've spent a lot of time deciding which is the best pose. And I'm considering what I can and can't do. I mean, you can't always get in to certain areas, and so you don't want to set yourself up for failure. So I'm considering, you know, will I be able to burn underneath the breast? I mean, underneath the bill to get into the breast. Will I be able to carve that little chick into the front and still be able to texture it accordingly? I mean, all of these things are consideration when you're designing your pieces, and you don't want to get stuck in a dead end where you hadn't considered if you could get into there and then all of a sudden you can't. Now what? So it doesn't mean you aren't still going to find challenges along the way, but if you think about these things when you are designing your own original designs, which I highly recommend, then you'll have an easier time of it when you're executing your carving. Gotta get here. I'm just deciding which feather's on top of the other. I'm gonna go with this one, and I can only get to it from the side so far. Then I have to switch over. Light really is not very good for that. If I can get in, and this is a different feather, I want to get that laid in before I finish off the other. Where they meet. I'll do this one first because it's on top of the one in the center. The ones in the center. And when you get to the center of that feather, your stroke is pretty much straight down, but as you're going to the outer edge on each side, curve your tip a little bit. Put a little bit of a twist in it to add contour to the feather. Or to enhance the contour that's already there instead of working against it. I carved contour into these feathers, and I don't want to be working against what I spent time creating. I think after I finish this feather, maybe not. Okay, so I'll have to do this one to be able to finish the one next to it under the bill, because it's on top. Then I can I have to pull it away to see from a different view if I actually, got into that entire feather correctly. So far, so good. Okay, let's go a little further before I can. It's difficult not to pull it out of view when I'm working on a tight area. So I apologize if I do that occasionally. See, the direction changed, like right here. This feather's going down and radiating this way, but this feather that's just above it contradicts that feather below in barb direction. So all the feathers are flowing in the same direction, but the barbs within each feather also have direction and contour, adding to their realism. Getting closer. Okay, so I see this one's on top. And many of you might find it's easier to turn the bird than to move your hand to get into certain areas. I know I do. So what happens is I work on this area here, getting everything initially burned in, establishing the feather barb flow, and by the time I get that done, I'm pretty sick of it. Tired of standing on my head, and so it's a good time to stop and move on to another place, knowing I'm going to come back and clean it up, refine it as needed. It'll be easier to come back and say, oh, I need to put a line here, or I need to put a line there a little bit later on after I'm rested from doing what I'm doing right now. It can be sickening, if you want to call it that. Okay, so I'm not sure when my video's going to run out. I didn't look at the clock this time, so I see a battery light flashing. And either that means the battery's getting low, or the space on storage on my card is getting short, low, or both. Like I said, I get two 20-minute videos out of my camera before I have to stop and clear them off, download them onto my computer, or upload them onto my computer. Okay, let's get this guy going. Then this one is a little bit different. sometimes I find I can only do so much. It was very apparent on the common loon with chicks. I could only do so much in an uncomfortable position like this, in an area with a tool that it's not my favorite tool to be doing this with. And you might want to just break it up. It's like, okay, I'm going to work on this for about 5-10 minutes, and then I'm going to go work somewhere else, just to get you through. I didn't have as much patience in, years earlier as I do today.